Welcome to another episode of Titan PI TV. We're looking at the inside workings of an operation investigation agency, that being here, Derby Titan. I'm your host, Simon Henson, and also Managing Director of Titan Private Investigation Limited. So, thank you for once again for listening to another Titan PI TV episode. Today, we're going to be looking at why do you pay for a private investigator up front? So let's look at some of the examples where you will pay prior to receiving the service. Surveillance, you will pay prior. Surveillance requires 2 surveillance operatives for a minimum of 5 hours. Graphology or handwriting analysis, you will pay for prior to receiving the service. Person traces, you will pay for prior to receiving the service. Background checks, you will pay for before receiving the service. Why though? So let's look at surveillance, the first example. Surveillance requires a minimum of 2 surveillance operatives. They deploy for a minimum of 5 hours. There is no maximum. If, for example, we deploy the surveillance operatives and the subject or the person you want us to watch doesn't do what you're expecting, then you may turn around and say, well, I'm not paying because nothing's happened. But you are paying for a service, and that's why it's key that we get the times for the deployment correct in terms of surveillance. So we are paid up front. As regards to graphology, the reason you pay up front is because there's 7 days potentially of analysis to do on a signature or a piece of handwriting. Once that time has been spent, if we're not paid for it, that's 7 days of work. So you pay up front, so we are guaranteed that we will get the fee for the service. As regards to person tracing, it might be that we conduct the research, we trace the person, and then we contact you for payment. However, it might not be of importance to you anymore, but as an agency, we have done the analysis, so that is paid for up front. Background checks, the same again. It might be that we put hours and hours of a researcher's time into a background check on a particular person. And there's no longer of importance to the client at the end of it. So once again, we ask for it up front. Now, we understand that most likely you've never used a private investigator before. We understand that you've probably just researched on Google or another search engine and it's come up with a company you've never heard of before. And it's a lot trust-wise for us to take, for example, £600 off you for a surveillance, or £480 for a graphology or handwriting analysis. It is a lot of money. And with the current rise in scams, we fully understand that. And in certain circumstances, we may agree to 50%. We certainly wouldn't with surveillance, but with some of the other services, which are purely analytical and a desktop exercise, we may agree to a 50% deposit and then the 50% upon result, which we fully understand. So what do we recommend if you've never used a private investigator before? We recommend you do your due diligence. So look at their Google reviews. Have they got negative reviews? Are they a cowboy outfit? Because this industry isn't regulated. There is no licensing, so anybody can be in it, have a glossy website and say they're a private investigator. We would recommend that you ring round other agencies to confirm that you're not paying an inflated price for the service. Because if you've not used a private investigator before, you don't know generally what the industry rates are, which majority of us abide by and have the same pricing structure. At Titan, we publish all of our prices for every service, and we'll go through a few of them now. So surveillance. Surveillance requires, as I said earlier, 2 surveillance operatives. We have done previous episodes on why it's a minimum of 2, so feel free to look at that. So it's a minimum of 2 surveillance operatives. They cost £60 each and we deploy for a minimum of 5 hours. So a minimum surveillance of 5 hours is £600. You can then extend, as I've alluded to before, hour by hour at the same rate of pay. So at the end of the 5 hours or just before the 5 hours is up, you may say, Simon, I would like to extend by another hour, please. No problem at all. That's £60 per operative, £120, including the VAT. So we can extend hour by hour. Graphology or handwriting analysis. If you're looking at for example, a will. So signatures on a will are in question. For us to look at those signatures and analyse them, it is difficult. We're going to need pretty much the genuine document, the original document. So we will need that couriered to us. Initially, when we look at it, we can just have a copy of the will, but generally with signatures, we need to be able to look at the depth and the scratches which are left in the paper. So we may need the original. There's a lot of work involved in this, and we will need at least 12 genuine signatures, whether that's an official document or whether that person is still alive. If it's not, for example, a will, then they can just be written on a piece of paper. But generally they need to be the same date as, or the same year, or close to that date that the original, the one that's in question, was written. So that's £480 for signatures. For handwriting analysis, we don't need the original, generally. That's £420, including VAT, and we will need, obviously, the document which is in question, the piece of handwriting in question, and then examples of that handwriting. Person tracing. Person traces cost £360. They take 24 hours and they're based on a no trace, no fee basis. So although you pay upon instruction, you pay up front. If we're not successful, we give you a full refund. We will need to know essential information: the name of the person, the date of birth or age, and ideally a last known address if possible. Background checks cost £600. Background checks are bespoke to what you require, and we will advise you what we can and can't do legally or without breaching GDPR. Lie detector tests. Lie detector tests are £480, including VAT. We use Converus, which is I Detect. We have done a previous episode on lie detector testing, so feel free to have a look at that. GPS vehicle tracking is £420, including the VAT for week 1. Week 2 and subsequent weeks are £240, including VAT. All we need to know is where the vehicle is parked, overnight generally, and the make, model and registration number. Analytical work as regards computers and mobile phones. We can do a full forensic on a mobile phone or a computer for £600, including the VAT. We will need you to send to us the article, so the phone or the laptop or computer. We will then have it analysed, and then we will send it back. So roughly you are without your device for 48 hours. Bug sweeps. Bug sweeps, or TSCM, Technical Surveillance Countermeasures. These generally cost £1,080 for a general house, and that's £900 plus the VAT. Penetration testing. Penetration testing is generally used to see if we can get into a building. We are testing the physical security of a building, so that's usually a business, and that starts at £1,800, including VAT. And process serving, which is the legal serving of legal documents, £180, including VAT, and we attend up to 3 times. Those are our prices. Those are our services, not limited to that, but those are our most popular services. So do your due diligence on a company before you hire them. That is another episode of Titan PI TV. Thank you very much for listening. As always, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Till next time.